It is a privilege for me to address our worldwide brotherhood, all of you, on the same day. Today is what we as Jehovah's Witnesses often say is the most important day of the year. Of course, it is not the same day each year on our modern calendars. Instead, it matches the date Jesus died according to the ancient Jewish calendar, Nisan 14. To start us off, we will have the text read for us by Brother Mark Numer, a helper to the teaching committee of the governing body.
Sunday, March 24th. Keep doing this in remembrance of me. Luke 22:19.
Thank you, Mark. It is a short but very important scripture text. Interestingly, this is the same day's text that was used for the date of the memorial in 2023. You might recall that Brother Hurd was the chairman for the morning worship last year. He addressed the simple word "this" in the verse and how often Jesus intended that celebrating the memorial of his death should be observed. If you want to add something else to your family worship this week, consider rewatching Brother Hurd's Memorial Morning Worship comments from last year. To access it, go to jw.org and type Memorial Morning Worship in the search bar. You can review these instructions again when trying to locate the video for family worship. Today, I would first like to comment on the simple word "me" in the verse. Jesus said, "Keep doing this in remembrance of me." Which me do you think Jesus was primarily asking us to remember? Was it just what he did at this very occasion? No. He wanted us to remember his sacrifice, yes, but also what it meant. This involved his whole existence in fulfilling Jehovah's purpose. Jesus fulfilled various roles. To be specific, he first was the pre-human spirit Son of God named Michael. Then, by means of a miraculous transformation, he became the human Son of God, Jesus Christ. Later, at his death and resurrection, he became the ultimate. He again became the spirit person Michael with the special role of being high priest and king. By his life and death as a human, he provided the basis for righting all of the wrongs and imperfection experienced since the Garden of Eden. When he said, "Keep doing this in remembrance of me," he was speaking directly to his 11 faithful apostles after the last valid Passover meal had been concluded. Did he want them to remember the Jesus as the human whom they had spent time with over the past 2 or 3 years? Obviously, they would never forget in a lifetime the human Jesus and how he walked and talked with them. It was indelibly etched in their memories. They would always remember the miracles he performed, his teachings, and the example he left for them to follow. Note, please, that at Luke 22, verse 19, it ends with the words, "Keep doing this." That means on into the future. And Jesus said those words on the night he was going to die. Shortly afterward, he made a covenant with them to be with him in his future heavenly kingdom. Jesus' primary reason for coming to earth was not to live as a human, but to die as a perfect human. That is the Jesus that he wanted them to remember. Please read with me on screen Matthew 20, verse 28. Here he expresses what they were to remember about him. Just as the Son of Man came, not to be ministered to, but to minister and to give his life as a ransom in exchange for many. He did assist them when he was a human, but he wanted them and us to remember him as the Jesus who gave his life as a sacrifice that would eventually end sin and death. to remember him as Jesus, the one who opened the hope of everlasting life for the future, to remember him as the resurrected Jesus, who is now a glorious spirit creature sitting on a heavenly throne as ruling king, sitting next to his Father, the sovereign of the universe. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 18 eloquently refers to the Jesus we will all remember at the memorial tonight. Please read it with me on screen. For Christ died once for all time for sins, a righteous person for unrighteous ones, in order to lead you to God. He was put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit. Jesus was made alive in the Spirit, no longer a human. That is who we are remembering on this day. And as Jesus directed at Luke 22, verses 19 and 20, we will follow the pattern he established shortly before his death, the simple but profound pattern of passing the bread and wine and remembering him. About that procedure, he stated in our text for today, "Keep doing this in remembrance of me." I would now like to change our focus. The August 2020 issue of the Watchtower had an article entitled, "The Resurrection Reveals God's Love, Wisdom, and Patience." In discussing the future resurrection of humans in the New World, it indicated that those resurrected will be easily recognized. One sentence stated, "Based on resurrections that have already occurred, it seems that Jehovah will recreate people so that they look, speak, and think in the same way as they did shortly before they died. Oh, it is true, if they died older, they will look young and fresh, but they will be easily identified by their appearance and personality." Jesus himself likened death to sleep and the resurrection to being awakened from sleep. How does a person look when he wakes up in the morning? True, his hair might be mussed up, but he is easily recognizable. He looks the same as he did when he went to bed the night before. It was the same with all of the resurrections in the Bible. The person did not have to reintroduce himself to his family. He looked, spoke, and thought the same as before he died. Think of Lazarus. He had been dead for 4 days, and his body had already begun to decay. Yet when Jesus resurrected him, his sisters immediately recognized him, and Lazarus obviously remembered them. With that picture in your mind, what about Jesus when he appeared to his disciples after his resurrection? Unlike one who is resurrected back to human life in the coming new world, Jesus did not take on a human body. You'll recall that earlier we read 1 Peter 3, verse 18, where it says of Jesus, "He was put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit." He sacrificed that human body, the value of which was to be presented to Jehovah, allowing humans to have the hope of living forever on earth. He would not take that gift back, even temporarily. When Jesus appeared to his disciples after his resurrection, no one recognized him by his appearance. Let's look at a couple of examples, starting at John chapter 20, verses 14 and 15, please. This involves Mary at Jesus' tomb after his resurrection. You can read it from the screen with me if you like. After saying this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" She, thinking it was the gardener, said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him off, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." Obviously, Jesus did not have the same appearance after his resurrection. He materialized a body, but not a look-alike. Find Luke chapter 24, verses 15 and 16. Two of Jesus' disciples are walking along the road. Notice what transpired in verses 15 and 16. Now, as they were conversing and discussing these things, Jesus himself approached and began walking with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. How did they finally come to realize that this wise man on the road was actually the resurrected Jesus? They invited him to stay the night with them. Let's look at verses 30 and 31. And as he was dining with them, he took the bread, blessed it, broke it, and began handing it to them. At that, their eyes were fully opened, and they recognized him, but he disappeared from them. Comprehension set in when they saw his mannerisms, not his face. And then, in retrospect, his speech gave away his identity. Glance at verse 32. And they said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us as he was speaking to us on the road, as he was fully opening up the Scriptures to us?" Within the hour, they leave that location and meet the 11 apostles and others in Jerusalem. Jesus appears again, but he evidently looks totally different from his appearance earlier that day. Drop down to verses 36 and 37. Of Jesus, it says, "While they were speaking of these things, he himself stood in their midst and said to them, 'May you have peace.' But because they were terrified and frightened, they imagined that they were seeing a spirit." This was the same day. The disciples who had been walking on the road with him earlier that day were present, and yet he evidently looked different on the two different occasions that he appeared to them. His physical appearance was not important at that point, since it did not represent his glorious spirit body. However, since humans cannot see a spirit creature, it required Jesus to materialize a human form. In this way, they could see where he was and respond to Jesus, who in reality at this point was an invisible spirit creature. The Bible does not say, but can you imagine the confusion and conflict it might have caused if Jesus had materialized a body that looked like his former human self? Could his disciples have subtly been coerced into believing that this was the same Jesus that they knew so well? Would that have blurred the reality of him being the glorious spirit person that Jesus had been transformed into? Think about it. Jesus would shortly be exalted to a superior position, superior even to the position he had in heaven before he became the human infant of a virgin, and before he became the adult human Son of God and the long-looked-for Messiah for receptive Jews of that time. If the materialized human body was a look-alike to his former human self, might not that stir up rumors by his enemies that he really had not died, and thus had not been resurrected as the heavenly Son of God? While we do not know those possibilities for sure, we are totally confident that Jehovah was watching over his newly resurrected Spirit Son and guiding him appropriately, even as he did while Jesus walked the earth as the perfect human Son of God. Friends, we are all looking forward to tonight. Most of us have attended the memorial of Jesus' death before. Many among us have attended 40, 50, or more times over the decades that have passed. However, we all still eagerly look forward to tonight when we will be reminded of what Jehovah and Jesus did for all of us. Yes, we keep doing this in remembrance of the glorified Jesus. And all praise and honor go to his Father and our Father, Jehovah, our Savior, and the Sovereign of the universe. Enjoy your day and evening together on this, the most important day of the year. Mark, would you please read the Watchtower comments for today?
Each year during the memorial season, we show our appreciation for what Jesus has done by taking time to meditate prayerfully on the meaning of his death. We also encourage as many as possible to join us for this special occasion. And we are determined not to allow anything to prevent us from attending the memorial. At the memorial, we learn why mankind needs a ransom and how the death of one man can atone for the sins of many. We are reminded of what the bread and the wine represent and who should partake of them. And we meditate on the blessings that are in store for those who cherish the earthly hope. We should not take these truths for granted.
Thank you, Mark. It is now time to continue with the memorial Bible reading that we have been contemplating for the past few days. The verses to be read will appear on screen, and you will hear the reading in your own language.
Now on the first day of the unleavened bread, when they customarily offered up the Passover sacrifice, his disciples said to him,
"Where do you want us to go and prepare for you to eat the Passover?"
With that, he sent 2 of his disciples and said to them,
Go into the city, and a man carrying an earthenware water jar will meet you. Follow him, and wherever he goes inside, say to the master of the house, The teacher says, Where is the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large upper room, furnished and ready. Prepare it for us there.
So the disciples went out, and they entered the city and found it just as he said to them, and they prepared for the Passover.
On the first day of the unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying,
"Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover?"
He said,
Go into the city to so-and-so, and say to him, The teacher says, My appointed time is near. I will celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your home.
So the disciples did as Jesus instructed them and prepared for the Passover.
After evening had fallen, he came with the 12. And as they were reclining at the table and eating, Jesus said,
Truly I say to you, one of you who is eating with me will betray me.
They began to be grieved, and to say to him one by one,
It is not I, is it?
He said to them,
It is one of the 12, the one dipping with me into the bowl. For the Son of Man is going away, just as it is written about him. But woe to that man through whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that man if he had not been born.
And as they continued eating, he took a loaf, said a blessing, broke it, and gave it to them, saying,
Take it. This means my body.
And taking a cup, he offered thanks and gave it to them, and they all drank out of it. And he said to them,
This means my blood of the covenant, which is to be poured out in behalf of many. Truly I say to you, I will by no means drink any more of the product of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God.
Finally, after singing praises, they went out to the Mount of Olives. And Jesus said to them,
You will all be stumbled, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered about. But after I have been raised up, I will go ahead of you into Galilee.
But Peter said to him,
Even if all the others are stumbled, I will not be.
At that, Jesus said to him,
Truly I say to you that today, yes, on this very night, before a rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times.
But he kept insisting,
If I have to die with you, I will by no means disown you.
Also, all the others began to say the same thing. So they came to a spot named Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples,
Sit down here while I pray.
And he took Peter and James and John along with him, and he began to feel deeply distressed and to be greatly troubled. He said to them,
I am deeply grieved, even to death. Stay here and keep on the watch.
And going a little way forward, he fell to the ground and began praying that, if it were possible, the hour might pass away from him. And he said,
Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want.
He returned and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter,
Simon, are you sleeping? Did you not have the strength to keep on the watch for 1 hour? Keep on the watch and pray continually, so that you do not come into temptation. The spirit, of course, is eager, but the flesh is weak.
And he went away again and prayed, saying the same thing. And he came again and found them sleeping, for their eyes were weighed down, so they did not know what to answer him. And he returned the 3rd time and said to them,
At such a time as this, you are sleeping and resting. It is enough. The hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us go. Look, my betrayer has drawn near.
And immediately, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him a crowd with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. Now his betrayer had given them an agreed sign, saying,
Whoever it is I kiss, he is the one. Take him into custody and lead him away under guard.
And he came straight up and approached him and said,
Rabbi,
and gave him a tender kiss. So they seized him and took him into custody. However, one of those standing by drew his sword and struck the slave of the high priest, taking off his ear. But in response, Jesus said to them,
Did you come out to arrest me with swords and clubs, as against a robber? Day after day I was with you in the temple teaching, and yet you did not take me into custody. Nevertheless, this is to fulfill the Scriptures.
And they all abandoned him and fled. However, a certain young man wearing only a fine linen garment over his naked body began to follow him nearby, and they tried to seize him. But he left his linen garment behind and got away naked. They now led Jesus away to the high priest. And all the chief priests and the elders and the scribes assembled. But Peter, from a good distance, followed him as far as into the courtyard of the high priest. And he was sitting together with the house attendants and warming himself before a bright fire. Now the chief priests and the entire Sanhedrin were looking for testimony against Jesus in order to put him to death, but they were not finding any. Many indeed were giving false witness against him, but their testimonies were not in agreement. Also, certain ones were standing up and bearing false witness against him, saying,
"We heard him say, 'I will throw down this temple that was made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another not made with hands.'"
But even on these grounds, their testimony was not in agreement. Then the high priest stood up in their midst and questioned Jesus, saying,
"Do you say nothing in reply? What is it these men are testifying against you?"
But he kept silent and made no reply at all. Again the high priest began to question him and said to him,
"Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One?"
Then Jesus said,
I am. And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven.
At this the high priest ripped his garments and said,
"What further need do we have of witnesses? You heard the blasphemy. What is your decision?"
They all condemned him as deserving of death. And some started to spit on him and to cover his face and hit him with their fists and say to him,
"Prophesy!"
And slapping him in the face, the court attendants took him. Now while Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came. On seeing Peter warming himself, she looked straight at him and said,
"You too were with the Nazarene, this Jesus."
But he denied it, saying,
Neither do I know him, nor do I understand what you are talking about.
And he went outside to the entryway. There the servant girl saw him and again began to say to those standing by,
"This is one of them."
Again he was denying it. And after a little while, those standing by again began saying to Peter,
"Certainly, you are one of them, for you are, in fact, a Galilean."
But he started to curse and swear.
I do not know this man of whom you speak.
Immediately, a rooster crowed a second time, and Peter recalled what Jesus had said to him, "Before a rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times." And he broke down and began to weep.
In conclusion, friends, we want you to know that we love all of you very much. Please use this memorial occasion to draw closer to our loving Heavenly Father, to His dear Son, and to one another.